So we're going to start a new topic and we're going to look at vectors. Now, vectors come in both 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. So we're only going to focus on 2D first of all, and then we'll look at moving on into 3 dimensions. Now, U here is a vector, starting at the bottom left, going to the top right. And essentially, a vector just describes that journey from bottom left here to top right here. It has 2 things. So it has a magnitude, or a size, or a length. So from here to here. And it has a direction, again, starting from the bottom left, going to the top right. Okay, so every vector must always have these 2 things, a length and a direction, hence the arrow to show you what way you're going. Now, I can write this vector in what's called component form, and this is component form here. And in 2 dimensions, we have an x journey, and we have a journey in that y direction. Now, that's in terms of this vector here, so this vector u. So I'm starting at the bottom left here, and I'm traveling in a positive x direction by a distance of a. So a goes on top in my bracket. I then, starting at the bottom, and I'm going up to the top here, so I'm heading in a positive y direction with a length b. Okay, so my component form would be written like this. The x value is on top, the y value is on the bottom. You can get negatives here. So if you're heading in a negative y direction, so you're heading towards a negative x direction, so heading towards the left, you'd get a negative x. And if you're heading down the way, you can get a negative y. Now, this same vector can go the other way. So remember, it's really important what way this arrow is going. Okay, if I wanted to head from top right to bottom left, that would be negative u. So it's the same vector, same length, same magnitude, it's just heading the opposite way. So that would be the negative, and it's the reverse journey. And that's where we would get a negative a in my x direction and a negative b in my y direction. Okay, so you can go backwards. And there is a 0 vector, okay? So something that doesn't move would just be 0, 0. Now, let's look into, we're going to focus on naming some of these, first of all. Okay, so again, if you're taking notes, that would be our title. We're going to focus on naming vectors and writing what their component forms are. Now, some of you will be slightly new to this layer. I'm going to go through some on the left-hand side. You don't need to copy these down. You can if you want, but I'm going to give you some to try on the right-hand side, and they're the ones I'm going to ask that you copy down. Now, there are always 2 ways to name these vectors. So I'll do the first one at the top here, just because I'm going to struggle to have a bit of space. I'm going to start with this vector AB. And in fact, I might actually come down if we can see it at the bottom. So the vector AB, so it's starting here at A and it's going towards B. So I can use the capital letters to name it. And I can call it the vector AB, and I put a little arrow across the top of it. Now there's another way to name it, and the other way is with this lowercase w, which is in bold. Now, we can't write in bold. However, what we can do is we can put a little line underneath it. And they're the 2 ways of naming that vector. Okay, we can use the lowercase letter here, or the direction that it's going in. So A must come first, and then B must come second. If it was going the other way, it would be B then A, but that arrow tells me it's going in this direction. Now, I want to write it in component form. So I talk about the x direction first, so I'm heading positive x, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll be 4 on top. And then the y direction is again positive, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so there's 2 ways of naming it and the component form. Now, the reason why I'm stressing 2 ways of naming it is they might name it either way, okay? And we want you guys comfortable with, regardless of how they choose to name it, whether it be the capital letters at either point, or whether it be the lowercase in bold, just so that you guys know and are comfortable with naming it different ways. Now, let's go on to the next one. Again, I'm going to do this one up here again, just because it's slightly out of reach. I've got a slightly smaller screen, I'm afraid. So I'm starting at C and going to D. So it would be CD. I can also use its lowercase p, and again, I can't use bold, so I have to put a little line underneath it. Now, it doesn't have an x direction, so that value is 0. And then in terms of y, it's going minus by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's got minus 5 in terms of y. And again, I put my brackets around it. And that's the vector CD. let's do a couple more. Trying to remember my alphabet here. So E and F would come next. So it's starting at E and going to F because the arrow is heading in this direction. So it's the vector EF. That's being used at lowercase q. Okay, you always have to use the letters that they give you. Now, this one's heading in a negative x direction because it's heading to the left by 1, 2, 3. So it'll be -3. And positive y direction because it's going up the way, 1, 2, 3. And then the last one, G to H. So again, starting at G going to H, they've also called it the vector Z. Now, this one doesn't have an x direction because it doesn't move left or right, so that's 0. And the y direction, it's going up the way, so it's positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the vector 0, 5. Now, there's some on the right-hand side here for you to try. Okay, now for those of you that copy down the steps that I'm going through, what I'm essentially doing each time, unfortunately that's not disappearing, I always name it as 2 points and as a single letter first, so always name it. I'm counting that change in the x direction and the y direction first of all, and then I'm using that vector notation. So what I mean by that is the x is on top, the y is underneath, and we're surrounding that by the brackets. Now, there are 4 on the right-hand side for you to try. What I'm going to ask is that if you take the time, pause the video, try these for yourselves, okay, write them down, and name them in 2 ways, so with the capital letters and then with the lowercase, and then write the component form next to it. So if you pause the video, take as long as you need to do these, and then we'll go through them. So let's do the one at the top here first. So I've got K to G, so K to G, that's the vector P, and in component form it's going -3 in the x direction, and I'm going also negative in the y direction by 5, so it'll be -3, -5, and the rest I can see from the bottom. Next one, let's do TU. So I'm going from T to U, that's equal to W, and that's going to be the vector I'm heading 5 in the x direction and 2 in the y direction. And then let's do y to x. That's the same as the vector q. So I'm heading -2 in the x direction and +5 in the y direction. And then the last one, I've got L to K. I'm not going anywhere, or sorry, name it the second way, Z. I'm not heading anywhere in the x direction, so that's going to be 0. And I'm heading +5 in the y direction. Right, feel free to rewatch the video if you want, or there are some questions for you to try attached to your assignment.